Thank you guys all for coming out. How many of you guys have PowerCLI experience? Good. How about with the Vue plugins?
Do I have to admit to it?
Well, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Because the PowerCLI for Vue leaves some things to be desired. So we're going to try and go through some of the issues with that, some of the quirks, some of the kinks, and how you work through those and get to really the meat of what you're trying to accomplish. So who I am, I'm Kyle Ruddy. I'm on Twitter at KMRuddy. I blog at thatcouldbeaproblem.com. I'm on GitHub, do a lot of PowerShell stuff that's out there. Just released a dealing with VI licenses PowerShell module, have an NSX module that's out there. Big into community stuff. I'm a vBrown bag host. I've actually presented quite a few vBrown bags myself as well. I've been the Indie VMUG leader, for probably, I think I'm going on 5 years now. Recognition-wise in the community, been a VMware vExpert for 5 years, been a Cisco champion now for, I believe, 3 years in the data center space. Certifications, I have all kinds of stuff. Big believer in certs, right, wrong, or indifferent. So getting started. So the first major hurdle that you have to get around using PowerCLI for Vue is that it really only runs on the connection servers. So enter PS session is your friend. So, and basically what that's going to do is that's going to get you to start a PowerShell session on your connection server. Next up, using help. The get help or just help alias, tremendous help, walks you through a lot of the things that maybe aren't as intuitive as you would wish, or maybe are as intuitive in regular PowerCLI that just aren't there for PowerCLI for Vue. And then some of the verbiage change. So your gets are the same. However, in PowerCLI, it's new. PowerCLI for Vue, it's add. Same thing for set. It's either, actually that should be update. So it's set for PowerCLI, for Vue it's update. Removes the same though. So that is pretty much all the slides that I have. So we are doing demo stuff. Because really, who wants to watch slides on PowerShell? However, since I'm in a rather unique environment, jumping through all kinds of firewalls is not really conducive to live demos, so I have recorded it. So this is also, I hope this to be interactive. So if you have questions, if you see something that doesn't make sense, if you see something that you want more information on, raise your hand, let's discuss. I have plans and agendas, but really if you guys are engaged, I'd rather talk about what you guys want to talk about. Are we running? Yes, there we go. All right, so we're going to log into the Vue administrator in our lab environment. It's essentially a brand new Vue environment, very basic. Ooh, pretty effects. So we've got 2 connection servers, we've got an event database that's segregated out, single security server, which was done on purpose, that didn't end up working, but that's a totally different discussion. Your composer, vCenter server is cloudvc.student.lab. Then we're going to start off with doing our enter PS session, connecting over to our connection server. So it is literally as simple as enter PS session, computer name, go. Then you're connected. You can tell because off to the left-hand side it says con01.student.lab. And that's when you start getting into some of your requirements. So first off, you need to actually have PowerCLI running. You need to have all the modules or snap-ins loaded, depending on which version you're using. So everybody has their preference. Personally, I do the initialization script, just because that's constant, regardless of what version of PowerCLI you're using. Connect to your vCenter. cloudvc.student.lab. Since you are into a remote PowerShell session, it's going to ask you for a prompt for your credentials again. In this case, we are using the administrator account. So now we're connected to that. There is another initialization script that is used for the Vue, or PowerCLI for Vue. It is literally buried in the installer directory. So you're simply just adding in the snap-in. So now we're going to take a look at the modules that are now out there, so we can see all the VMware modules. Those are all just PowerCLI related. Then we're going to look at our snap-ins. The most important one to note is the bottom one, which is our vmware.vue.broker. That's going to be what controls all your commandlets for Vue. And we're going to take a look at the commandlets that are available now by doing a git command and telling it to focus just on the module that's actually a snap-in, that's vmware.vue.broker. So these are all the things that you can do. So you've got everything from managing pools, vCenters, composer domains, desktops. I mean, it's all over the place. So let's first start off by looking at our virtual center. And then we're going to compare it to what's there in the GUI itself. So fairly basic information. Nothing too surprising so far. Let's see, do we update? Yes, so we're going to make a change now. Try and show you some of the quirkiness with PowerCLI for Vue. So we're going to go ahead and modify the sparse reclamation. And what that is for the actual parameter itself, it's use space reclamation. So you're starting to notice that not everything is a one-to-one. And in this case, we set it over to false, and boom, it no longer shows up. So, surprise. Something that you have to take into account. So just because it's set to false, it's now disappeared. Not exactly a best practice, but it's what we're given. So we're going to go back through. One thing to note is that we use that with the pipe. So we went from get Vue VC into the update Vue virtual center. So to turn it back on, we're going to use the virtual center ID, which is the extremely long GUID. We're going to turn it back on. Now our SE sparse reclamation field is back. So that's one of the things that if you're going through and you're making reports or things of that nature, you need to know how to handle that. Because it's not always going to be there, and sometimes you get errors, and that's just not fun. So before this keeps going, I hope that paused it. Okay, so the Git Composer domain. The important thing to notice here is that while it has the domain right, has the VC ID right, has the Composer ID right, the username. This is not what we registered Composer to the Vue environment with. We used a service account. So right here, what it's showing you is the user account that we logged in with. Why it does that, beyond me, but it's there. So the next thing that we were going to look at there was the get license command. In this case, we're using a trial license. If you're doing licenses a lot, it's just as simple as update -license. It tosses in the new license key and you're all good. Okay, so now we're on to global settings. Now, one of the things that you're going to notice is that not everything that's in the actual global settings in the GUI is showing up within the CLI. Kinks. Stuff you get to work around. So let's take a look at what's there versus what isn't there. This is going to be another section where your help command is extremely important because you are now going in between. What we're going to do is, well, there we go. Yeah, using get help, doing the full, and then you can go through and take note of some things that you might not know off the bat. So one of the big things is the re-authenticate on interrupt. So it doesn't tell you this when you actually run it, but this requires a reboot. So if you don't know that, you might run it and be like, okay, we're good. Well, not quite. Let's see, I believe we're going to update the widget polling, which is there on the bottom. And the widget polling is the top left-hand widget, I guess, is what they're going with as far as terminology. But it's what shows you your health. It's what shows you your problems, your things of that nature. So we're going to go ahead and update that. One thing to note with that is that it's not Boolean. It's not true false. It is asking you for a 1 or a 0. Again, kinks. Really use the help. The help is really what's going to be there to save you. So we turned it off. We refreshed the global settings page and verified that that's good. Turned it back on by doing the widget polling 1. Now we're going to start looking at our connection servers. And in this case, the get connection broker actually pulls back both your connection servers and your security servers. We're going to focus in on just the first one, which is connection 01, which is also the system that we have our PowerShell session into. Take a look at what's displayed automatically versus what's in the GUI. Again, it's a very simple setup. Nothing that's too crazy so far. So then one of the things that, if you have a load balancer or something, you're going to want to modify your external URL. So that's what we're going to do here. And all you have to do is do your update connection broker, feed it the broker ID, which in this case is actually the server name. Not FQDN, it's literally just the server name itself. And then tell it what your external URL is going to be. In this scenario, we used VMUG.com, just because that's something that's out there. It's something to clearly show that a modification was made. So we can see the CLI shows it as VMUG.com. The GUI shows it as VMUG.com. So before moving on, we'll go ahead and revert that change as well. And then we're going to make a little bit of a more dramatic change here after that. We're going to go through and modify where the LDAP backup location is. So we're all back to normal now. Then what we need to do is we're going to go ahead and modify the backup location, the LDAP backup folder. So in this case, we're just going to do a get connection broker, select anything with CONN in the name, which is CONN and asterisk for a wildcard. We're going to do an inline for each, and then pass through the broker ID of each one, and tell it to change the LDAP backup folder to ctemp. This is something else that you might do in your environment fairly often if you're changing your backup locations or things of that nature. So now we can see that there towards the bottom, the LDAP backup folder is changed over to ctemp. It's been modified on both connection 01 and connection 02. Then we'll go out to the GUI and verify that it's been changed there as well. This time we'll look at connection 02. We can see that it's now ctemp. Since I was intending on using this environment today, we'll also go back through and revert it back to what it should be. After this, we're going to start taking a look at the pools. However, in this case, we only have the one pool, which is really okay because that's what you get as output from the get pool command. So, if you have many pools, hopefully you have a very large buffer because you're going to need it. It's not friendly the first time you run it. It literally gives you all the information. So we'll go out and take a look at what the pool looks like in the GUI. Because basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to replicate this page in PowerShell, which, not great, but it's what they did. So one thing to take a look at here as well is that it's also trying to show the systems, the machines, the VMs that are dedicated to that pool. However, it does it in its own way, which if this works, it's showing the machine DNs, which is literally giving you the LDAP Atom database output. So these guys, which is, you have no idea what it's telling you right there. But it swears those are the machines. So here's where a lot of the automation that at least I use for myself, because you can go through and do a lot of stuff with the pools. However, one fun thing is trying to figure out what commandlet to use. So there are a lot of commandlets that are based around pools. A lot for updating. There's manual pools, automatic link clone pools. In this case, we are guessing and saying this is an automatic link clone pool. There is nothing in the get pool output that will really tell you that in one spot. You'll have to kind of just make it up as you go. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to disable this pool. That is as simple as just doing update automatic link clone pool and using the parameter of disabled, setting it to true. You're going to have all the same output as before running the get pool. However, now it's going to show you the enabled, which is a little different because you just used the disabled parameter, is now showing false. Refresh the GUI, you can see that the desktop pool is also disabled. Going back out there, changing it back, setting it to re-enabling it, which is disabled false. Little counterintuitive, but part of the quirk. Now refreshing your pool page again, and we're good. So after you kind of mess with pools, a lot of times what I've cared about is now your entitlements. And so to get your pool entitlements, it is literally get-pool entitlements. In this case, your pool ID is going to be the name of the pool itself. So we're going to say get pool entitlement for pool_ID student. And right now we can see that domain users is the entitled group. And we're getting right back to where help is essential for PowerCLI for View. We're going to want to look at adding something. However, when this screen shows up, it tells you that you're looking for a SID. Well, okay, where do I get the SID? Where's that coming from? So what you have to do is go back and do another help. Only use the parameter of full so that you get all the information, and that's where it's going to tell you that you're getting that from get user. Get user is another awesome commandlet that is going to fill your screen, fill your buffer. So you're going to want to use your either filtering or whichever your favored pathway is on that. In this case, we're going to look for something that has vCenter in the name. So we're going to do a find and that has a display name including vCenter. So just like asterisk vCenter asterisk comes back. Holy crap, we still have quite a few stuff that has vCenter in the name. So we'll use the first one that shows up, vCenter admins. That seems like a good group to use. So we'll go back down, do the same commandlet over, only this time we'll append the select and first one. So yes, definitely the vCenter admins group. We're going to go ahead and pipe that into the add pool entitlement. Giving it, again, the pool ID of student. This is also another one it's a little different. So it actually shows you that an entitlement was added. So you can see on the screen there that it says that, hey, we did add an entitlement. If you noticed on the other ones that we've done, it really doesn't show anything. It just runs the commandlet, and there's no response or no feedback. So we're going to go back. We're going to do a get pool entitlement, verify that the vCenter admins group was indeed added as an entitlement to the student pool. It is there, so we should be good. One interesting thing to note is if you look at the entitlement ID, you can see that the newly created one, vCenter admins, now has an entitlement of 0. So normally when you add something to it, it's added at the end. In this case, it's added at the beginning. Who knows? Surprise. So now we're going to go ahead and clean it up. We're going to use the remove pool entitlement, again specifying the pool ID. However, this time we're just going to go ahead and copy paste in the SID specifically. So again, entitlements removed, you get your weird feedback, and then there you go, you're back to just having domain users as your entitlements. So now we're going to start looking at the actual desktops themselves. This is another kind of cool area where you can do some things that schedule task-wise or fairly helpful. Get desktop VM, another violation of our screen space. It's going to throw you a whole bunch of information at you. It's going to be up to you for how you ingest that information. You can use select statements to kind of clean it up. The get desktop VM also retrieves everything that's in this virtual center. So if it could potentially be a desktop, it will grab that too. Just because that could also be your term servers, it could be physical desktops, things of that nature. So what we use in this case is in pool, set that to true. Then we get the STUD 00 whatever desktop. We're going to select the last one in this case, which is student 006. And you can do things such as sending a VM reset, which is literally just send -VM reset. So then we are on the tail end of the commands that are available to us. So let's look at our dealing with events. However, that's another little quirky area because it's only going to feed back the events that are available in the section that are available. It's not going to dump all the events at you at once. Quirk, kink, whichever you like. So by doing a get event report list, you can see that these are your available reports that you can get lists from. Since this is a relatively new environment, we're going to look at just the configuration changes. And it's going to be get event report. Come on. There we go. And instead of having to be your report name, like what's coming back from the report list, it's view name. So we're looking at the configuration changes. Again, it spews everything back to you. So in this case, I'm actually going to go through and kind of clean it up, make it a little more readable So we're going to select the fields that we want to be retrieved. So in this case, we're going to do event ID, time, event type, and severity. So we can see that all of these things were going on. That is literally what we've done so far in this lab example. And last up is get monitor. Best I can reason is that this is trying to replicate things that are in both the widget area in the top left-hand admin page, as well as what's on the main screen there for, like, you know, whether your connection servers are green or red and so on and so forth. However, this one is like the worst violation of all the commands we've run so far. There's no consistency, there's no, the information is all over the place. So there's no running a select to try and clean this up. So let's, come on. It must have been at the end. Where is my cursor? Anyway, since we are getting a little further on time. So who has actually logged in and looked at the backend Atom database? Yeah, you're having a bad day if you start doing that. However, yeah, it's fun if you like pain. So one of the things that you can do is also modify. Hey, there we go. So if you've never logged in and really looked at the Atom database that's on the back end, this is how you connect to it. It's greatly discouraged. However, it's there. It's available. You can do stuff with it. It's a great tool, especially for troubleshooting if you run into things that should be taken out of the GUI that, you know, aren't. So we've connected in through there. We're going to start going through, looking at what's available, what's to look at. So we can see our student pool. If you have thin apps, some of those will show up in there as well. Policies is another big area where there's a lot of stuff. Properties is like where your virtual center is. Go back. Yep, there we go. Roles, these are any of the roles that you've custom created or just there by default. Server groups is your pools. Servers are actually all your desktops. So we're going to look at how you can actually connect into this so that you can read information out of it through PowerShell. You can also do modifications to it. That is definitely on your own because you can get into trouble fast. So all of this is out there. It's especially on my GitHub page. So we're going to go through, we're going to connect into the LDAP path that we use to connect into the ADSI unit. We're going to use the find all commandlet to find all the desktops. So these are exactly what's behind you on the screen there for servers. However, we're going to go ahead and try and actually see what's in these. So we're going to select the last one that's there. And then we're going to look at the properties for that. In which case, this is where you can start actually telling that this is an actual desktop. So like you have your IP host number that's there up towards the top. Oh, it went away already. Yeah, there we go. So your IP host number. And then you can see how the things that are on the right relate to the things that are in the GUI. Some of my uses for this was a lot of pulling reports, looking for inconsistencies that might be in the GUI that are not actually there. Creating alerts was another big one. So there on the left, we have the get desktop VM for the student 02, and then you kind of see how it relates to things as pulled from the database itself. It doesn't pull all of the same stuff. However, you can see how some of the names were modified a little bit to make it more readable. Things of that nature. So next up, I believe we're going to look at the pool itself. Yeah, so here's your pool that's actually in the server groups. So we're going to modify the LDAP path to now look at server groups. Run the exact same commands as before, changing our variable over to be pools, but still doing the find all. So we pull back everything. Then we can see the information that was presented to us in the GUI now through PowerShell. And this is the one that you can really tell the difference in between what's there on the PowerCLI version versus what's in the Atom database. Because it's very eerily similar. You get all of that stuff. So then I think we do one more. I think we actually go a level down in the properties and look at the virtual center. Right? Yeah. So clear that out. I'm going to create the... No, we're going to look at the virtual center server first. Right? Oh no, we're looking at the connection servers. But this is the same process as before. It's just another OU down. So now you're looking at OU server, then OU properties, then running the exact same stuff. So this is kind of where, this is the advanced part of it. This is where you can start getting into the real meat of the data that's going on behind the scenes. If you're really crafty, you can start creating either reports or alerts or things of that nature and actually compare them to what's in Virtual Center themselves. Out on GitHub, I have a script that I actually ran when I was at the last company, and it compared the pools, the available desktops, the desktops in use against what was being detected in Virtual Center against what was also being detected in the Atom database. Because we had, our environment was fairly static in that every day at around 8 a.m. to 8:30, a whole bunch of people logged on, and then at 5 o'clock or 5:30 p.m.-ish, everybody would then log back off. So we knew that if we ran a report at, say, 6 o'clock that said we still had like 100 people logged in, we know that that's wrong. So we know that there might be some kind of inconsistency or some misconfiguration that's going on within our view environment that we need to look at before people start logging on the next day, because we were trying to run a very tight ship. So I believe that is it for that. And our, if I can get my cursor back, there we go. So that's all I have. So thank you guys for coming. A reminder to fill out your surveys, and especially to, if you want to win prizes, put on your email address. That's how Matt's going to be doing the giveaways, getting out in touch with people, because he does not actually have the Synologies here. One other thing is that the going on next in P808B, There is the Pernick session that didn't make it onto the schedule. That is going to be covering the pitfalls and stalls from one of their EUC specialists. So thank you guys very much.